I need you to look at me. Really look at me. I'm standing here at 77 years old, a black woman living in subsidized housing in Chicago, and I'm about to tell you something that's going to sting. I spent 60 years of my life working. 60 years. I cleaned houses until my knees gave out. I worked in hospital cafeterias. I raised other people's children while mine practically raised themselves. And you know what I have to show for all of it? $847 in my bank account. That's it. My Social Security check comes in at $1,340 every month. And some months I have to cut my blood pressure pills in half because I can't afford the full prescription in food. This is what 6 decades of labor got me. This is what happens when you do everything you think you're supposed to do and still end up with nothing. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night, staring at the ceiling in this tiny apartment. I know exactly why I'm here. I know exactly which choices put me in this position. And the worst part, I see you making the same mistakes. I see it in every young black woman who thinks she's doing the right thing while she's actually digging her own grave. My name is Dorothy, and I'm going to tell you about the 4 habits that guaranteed my poverty. Not because I want your pity. I don't need that. I'm telling you because maybe, just maybe, you can do what I couldn't. Maybe you can change course before it's too late. The first habit that destroyed me was simple. I sacrificed everything for everyone except myself. And I mean everyone. My mother needed help with her electric bill. I sent money even when my own lights were about to get shut off. My sister got evicted from her apartment. I took her and her 3 kids into my 2-bedroom place and slept on the couch for 8 months. My children needed new shoes, new clothes, money for field trips. I worked double shifts at the hospital, came home and cleaned houses on weekends, barely slept. When my church asked for donations, I gave. When my nephew died and my brother couldn't afford the funeral, I paid for it. When my cousin needed help with rent, I covered it. Every single month there was someone who needed something, and every single month I gave it to them. You know what I told myself while I was doing all this? I told myself that this is what we do. This is what black women do. We take care of our people. We don't leave anyone behind. We hold the family together no matter what it costs us. And that sounds beautiful, doesn't it? It sounds noble and selfless and full of love. But here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. You cannot save people when you're drowning yourself. I was working 70-hour weeks, sending money to my mother, raising my sister's children because she couldn't, paying for funerals and rent and groceries and emergencies. And at the end of every month, I had nothing. Not $1 in savings, not a penny for retirement, nothing for me. And you know what happened? I got old. That's what happens to everyone eventually, but I got old broke. And every single person I sacrificed for, they're all struggling too. Because I didn't teach them how to stand on their own feet. I taught them how to lean on me. I taught them that Dorothy would always be there with money she didn't have and help she couldn't afford to give. Now I'm 77, living on $1,340 a month, and people are still calling asking for help. And I don't have it to give. I barely have enough for myself. You're doing this right now. I know you are. You're sending money to your mother when your own rent is late. You're co-signing on loans you can't afford because family asked. You're taking in relatives when you can barely feed yourself. You're buying things for your kids that you can't pay for because you don't want them to feel poor, and you're calling it love. But let me tell you something I learned too late. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. You can love your family and still say no. You can care about your people and still protect your own future. Because what good does it do anyone if you end up like me, 77 and broke with nothing to give? The second habit that killed me was working 3 times as hard and never asking for 3 times as much. I cleaned houses for 40 years. In 1985, I charged $40 to clean a house. You know what I charged in 2015? $60. In 30 years, I raised my prices by $20, while everything else in the world tripled in cost. And you want to know why I did that? Because I was grateful. I was so grateful that these white families let me into their homes. I was grateful they trusted me with their keys. I was grateful they kept me instead of hiring someone younger. I was so busy being grateful that I forgot I had value. I watched the families I worked for take vacations I helped pay for with my cheap labor. I watched them buy new cars while I took 2 buses to get to their houses. I watched them retire at 65 with pensions and 401ks and investment accounts while I worked until my body literally couldn't do it anymore. And not once, not one single time, did I say the words I deserved more, because that's what black women are taught, isn't it? We're taught that asking for more is being greedy, that we should be grateful for whatever scraps we get, that our value is measured by how little we require, not by how much we produce, that being a good worker means being cheap and never complaining. I was the best cleaner those families ever had. I was reliable. I was thorough. I showed up in snowstorms. I rearranged my schedule when they needed me. I was loyal for decades, and I still died poor. Because the world doesn't reward hard work. The world rewards people who know their worth and demand to be paid for it. Right now, you're doing the same thing. You're working overtime without asking for a raise. You're doing tasks that aren't in your job description to be helpful without asking for extra pay. You're staying at a job that underpays you because you're grateful to have work at all. And every single year you stay silent is another year you guarantee your own poverty. I should have walked into those houses and said, my rate is $100, take it or leave it. I should have doubled my prices every 10 years. I should have known that if they said no, I could find someone else who would pay. But I was too afraid, too grateful, too convinced that I wasn't worth more. The third habit that destroyed my future was believing that investing was for people who already had money. In 1982, one of the women I cleaned house for sat me down in her kitchen. She was nice, that one. She said, Dorothy, do you have an IRA? Do you know what that is? I told her no. She explained it to me. She said you put away a little money every month and it grows over time, and when you retire you have something to live on. She told me I should open one and put away just $50 a month. I remember laughing at her. $50 a month? Ma'am, I'm making $600 a month. I can't spare $50. I have bills, I have kids, I have people depending on me. That woman retired at 60 years old with $800,000. I retired at 74 with nothing. But here's what I didn't understand back then. She didn't have extra money lying around. She made a choice. She chose to pay herself first before she paid anyone else. She chose to invest before she spent. She chose future security over present comfort. I made the opposite choice every single time. I thought I'll invest when I have extra money, but when you're poor, there's never extra. There's always another bill, always another emergency, always another person who needs help. So I waited for extra money for 60 years. It never came. The money was there. Looking back, it was always there. Even if it was just $25 a month, even if it was $10 a week, but I spent it on right now instead of later. I spent it on making sure everyone else was okay instead of making sure future Dorothy would be okay. And now later is here. Future Dorothy is now present Dorothy, and I have nothing. If I had put away $50 a month starting in 1982, do you know how much I'd have today? Hundreds of thousands of dollars, enough to live on comfortably, enough to help my daughters without destroying myself, enough to not have to cut pills in half. But I didn't, because I thought investing was for rich people, for people who already made it. I didn't understand that investing is how people make it. The fourth habit that I carry the most guilt about is that I taught my daughters that surviving was enough. I have 3 daughters. They're in their 40s and 50s now, and all 3 of them are struggling, and that's on me. That's my fault. I raised them to survive, not to build. I taught them to be grateful for jobs that paid just enough to eat, to be thankful for men who didn't hit them, to accept less and call it a blessing. I taught them how to work hard and how to sacrifice and how to keep going even when they're breaking into pieces. But I never taught them how to win. I never taught them about building credit or buying property or demanding raises or investing for retirement. I never taught them to walk away from jobs that didn't value them. I never taught them that they deserved more than minimum wage and government assistance. I didn't teach them these things because I never learned them myself. I only knew how to endure. I only knew how to make it through one more day. I only knew how to survive. And now I watch my daughters repeat my entire life like they're reading from a script I wrote. They work 2 jobs. They raise kids alone. They send money to family they can't afford to help. They never save. They never invest. They never demand more. They survive, exactly like I taught them to. Surviving isn't the same as living. And I raised 3 women who know how to survive, but have no idea how to build wealth or security or a future that doesn't terrify them. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Dorothy, you were a black woman in America. The system was rigged against you from the start, and you're right. You're absolutely right. I faced racism every single day of my working life. I was paid less than white women doing the same job. I was denied opportunities. I was overlooked and undervalued and discriminated against constantly. The system was designed to keep me poor. I'm not denying that. But I also made choices that guaranteed my poverty. I chose to sacrifice myself until there was nothing left. I chose to undervalue my own labor for 60 years. I chose not to invest a single dollar. I chose to teach my daughters survival instead of strategy. The system made it harder for me, but my choices made my poverty inevitable. I'm 77 years old now. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in subsidized housing. Some months I can't afford my medications, so I cut my pills in half and hope that's enough. My daughters help when they can, but they're drowning in their own struggles. I spend my days sitting in this apartment thinking about that woman in 1982 who told me to save $50 a month. The woman who retired with $800,000 while I have $847. I can't change my story anymore. It's written. It's done. This is my ending, and there's nothing I can do about it now. But your story isn't written yet. You who are sacrificing yourself for everyone else while you drown. You who work 3 times harder than everyone around you and accept half the pay. You who think investing is for people who already have money. You who are teaching your children to survive instead of thrive. Every single choice you make today is writing your ending. Every time you say yes when you should say no. Every time you accept less than you're worth. Every time you spend instead of save. Every time you teach your children to be grateful for scraps. You're writing your ending. I wrote my ending in sacrifice, in silence, and settling, and my ending is poverty and pain and regret. You don't have to write the same ending. You can value yourself. You can demand what you're worth. You can invest even if it's just $25 a month. You can teach your children that they deserve more than survival, that they deserve to build something real. I wasted 60 years being noble and broke, and nobility doesn't pay rent. Sacrifice doesn't build wealth. Hard work without strategy doesn't guarantee anything except exhaustion. Change your story today, right now, before later becomes too late. Before you're 77 looking back at 60 years of mistakes you can't undo. I'm living proof that you can work your entire life and still end up with nothing. You can do everything you think you're supposed to do and still fail. You can sacrifice everything for everyone and still die poor and alone. Don't be proof like me. Be different. Be smarter. Be someone who valued themselves enough to build a future. Because I'm telling you right now, from this subsidized apartment where I cut my pills in half, there is nothing noble about being broke. There is nothing beautiful about sacrifice that destroys you. There is nothing loving about teaching your children to accept less. Save yourself. Build something. Demand more. That's what I should have done. That's what I'm begging you to do. Well, there you have it. Now I'm curious, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I genuinely love connecting with viewers from everywhere. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe. Your support keeps this channel going. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.